One of the most important things that you need to be able to do in the C programming language is mathematical operations. I know you love math, but trust me, it's easy in C. You can do 5 different types of mathematical operations. You can add, subtract, multiply, divide, and modulo, which is the trickiest one, but it's pretty simple. First we have addition. We can add numbers, and we're going to print them out each time just so you can see how it works. And of course, we'll be working with integers this time, and we'll do something with addition. We're going to print out 2 plus 2. You have the plus sign in the middle and the two numbers on the outside, just like you would if you were working with algebra or any other kind of math. It's basically the same as you learned it in school. So we're going to print this out, and we get 4, which is what we would expect. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So we can also subtract 10 minus 5, and we get 5. Now we could also do 5 minus 10, and we would get negative 5. When you work with mathematical expressions, you can get negative numbers and positive numbers. Okay, so multiplying 2 times 24 is 48. And now we have division. So we have 36 divided by 6. We get 6. And modulo. Modulo returns the remainder of division. For example, 5 divided by 2, 2 goes in twice, but the remainder, 1 is left over. The remainder is 1. So if we do 5 modulo 2, and the modulo operator is represented by the percent sign, which is confusing, but you'll just have to remember that the percent sign does not mean percent, it means modulo. 5% 2, and this should print out 1. 1. The remainder of 5 divided by 2 is 1. Alright, so that's the basics of math with integers, but there's one more thing. When you do math with integers, the result will always be an integer. It will never have a decimal place. So if you do something like 1 divided by 3, you would think, oh, that's 1/3. That should be 0.33333. Well, 0.33333, etc., is a decimal number, whereas integers will only return integer values when you use them in math. So, what do you think this is going to give? Is it going to round up to 1? Is it going to round down to 0? This will round down to 0. If there's anything left over, it will cut it off. So for example, 5 divided by 2, you would think 2.5. Well, it's going to cut that half right off, leaving you with 2. And that's why you sometimes need the modulo operator to determine whether or not the division took place fully or whether there was something left over. Now, if you're using double numbers, decimal numbers, you don't have that problem. For example, 5.0 divided by 2.0 is 0. Okay, that's not right. 5.0 divided by 2. See, I did make a mistake here. These are double decimal numbers, and they're going to give a result that's a decimal number. But I, being stupid, told it that I was printing out an integer, and it didn't know what to do, so it said 0. So this has to be an F, %F for floating point numbers, and now it should work. 2.5, and it gets it correct. And the modulo operator is only for integers. If I try to use it here, it would give an error message. So that is the basics of floating point numbers. You can use the same plus, minus, divide, subtract. That's the same as it is with integers. The only difference is that there's no modulo operator with floating point numbers, and for division takes place fully and nothing is ever cut off. So what would happen if you were to use one of the numbers was an integer and the other one was a decimal number, 5.0/2? Now, is it going to give you 2.5 or is it going to give you 2? Well, it's going to give you 2.5, and that's because whenever the two of them are different, it's always going to take the one that has more accuracy. For example, it's going to convert 2 to 2.0. And if you did it 2 divided by 5.0, it would again convert that 2 to a 2.0 and give you 1/2. Or 0.4. Don't ask me why I did that. Because I'm an idiot and 2 divided by 5 is not 1/2. I apologize for that. 2.5 divided by 2.5 divided by 5 would be 1/2. Alright, so that is the basics. I keep saying that's the basics of integer and decimal math, but there actually is something more that you need to know. And that is, you can do more than one thing at a time. Like 2 plus 2, you can do that. And you can also add 4. And that works fine. And you could subtract 10. And it will work from left to right. 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 4 is 8, minus 10 should give us -2. And of course, there's another mistake because I didn't switch this back to integer. And these are all integers, so it has to be an integer. -2. Alright, now there's one thing you need to know. Just as it was in algebra, there's something called operator precedence. And that is multiplication and division will always take place before addition and subtraction. So 2 times 3 minus 5. It's going to do this first and then subtract the 5. So this should give us the answer of 1. Whereas if it did this first, it would get -2, and it would multiply that with 2, and we would have -4. And here we get 1, as we expected. Alright, and division is the same way. And it doesn't matter if it's on the left or right side. If we had 2 minus 3 times 5, it would still do the 3 times 5 first, and then subtract that from the 2. If you need this to be done first, if you need to do a addition or multiplication first, you have to put it in its own parentheses. In that case, just as it is in algebra, it'll do this first and then multiply it by 5. So I'll show you this way with the parentheses and then without the parentheses to show the difference. -5 without the parentheses, it should instead give us 3 times 5, 15. 2 minus 15 is -13. And -13 is what we get. So you have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and the modulo operator for integers. If you're using only integers and you use division, it will cut off whatever is left over. And if you need it to perform addition or subtraction before multiplication or division, you have to put that in parentheses. That's it, pretty much it for math, and I'll see you again in the next tutorial.